Afghan peace talks suffer another setback. The Taliban has refused to attend a highly anticipated summit in Turkey, which is now postponed until at least next month. With violence increasing in Afghanistan, who can best convince the Taliban to lay down their arms? I'm Andrea Sankey, and today on the Newsmakers, I'll ask Pakistan's foreign minister if Islamabad holds the key to peace in Afghanistan. Now, after 2 decades of war and almost a decade of attempts to negotiate peace with the Taliban, the dream of seeing an end to violent conflict in Afghanistan seems almost as distant as ever. In 2013, negotiations were scheduled to take place in Doha, but were canceled by then-President Hamid Karzai. The former Afghan leader was furious after the Taliban built an office in the Qatari capital that looked almost like an embassy. A few years later, another set of talks took place in the Pakistani capital, Islamabad. Representatives from China, Pakistan, the U.S., and Afghanistan discussed how to broker peace between the warring factions, but those talks ended with no agreement. Then, in 2020, there was what many hoped was a breakthrough. Washington and the Taliban signed a deal to end the war. It was agreed all U.S. and NATO allies would withdraw their troops from the country if the Taliban stopped working with other extremist groups. Then, a return to Doha for a historic moment as the Afghan government and Taliban met face to face for the first time. But what real progress was made in that meeting is still up for debate. And that brings us to the latest round of talks that was supposed to take place here in Istanbul. Many had hoped Pakistan could play a key role in breaking the deadlock between the Afghan government and the Taliban. It's, of course, hoped that Islamabad can do that if these talks are rescheduled. So joining me now to discuss the future of those negotiations is Pakistan's own Foreign Minister, Shah Mahmood Qureshi. Thank you so much for being with us. Most agree that at the very least, Pakistan is a necessary partner, of course, in Afghan peace talks. Some believe, though, that Pakistan actually holds the key to peace in Afghanistan. I want you to tell me how much Pakistan can really do here, and not just you and your government, but the military and the ISI as well.
Well, the government, the military, and the ISI, they're all on the same page, and we all believe a peaceful, stable, democratic, prosperous Afghanistan is in Pakistan's interests. So we're on the same page. We're all trying very hard to push the peace process forward. It wouldn't have reached where it has without Pakistan's facilitating role. Look at the Doha talks, the 29th agreement, the Taliban-US agreement. Look at the commencement of intra-Afghan negotiations on the 12th of September, and the agreement on the rules of procedure. It wouldn't have happened without Pakistan's nudging. Now, but they're independent people. We can take them so far. Ultimately, decisions have to be taken by Afghans.
That is to say, though, that you wield considerable power over the Taliban and in your influence over them. But what I'm trying to come to grips with, and what so many people around the world are actually trying to reconcile, is whom you're actually negotiating with. It's difficult to understand. You call them tough negotiators. But many would argue this is not negotiation, this is blackmail. The Taliban will say, give us what we want, or we will continue to kill innocent people. We will bomb universities and education centers until you cede to our demands. Are these really negotiations?
Can I just qualify your statement by saying that our influence over Taliban is exaggerated? We have been engaging with them. Because we felt they have a say in Afghanistan. And the world has realized, after 2 decades of fight, that you cannot have peace until and unless you bring them into the mainstream. So our influence is exaggerated. They are very independent, but they are smart. They understand where their interests lie. And I think in the discussions that I've had with them, in Islamabad, when they came and had discussions with me, I realized that they have also realized that they need to engage with the rest of the world if they want acceptability. And violence is not an option, How can you have peace and violence at the same time? And this is exactly what we've been telling them. Reduction in violence is essential, leading to a ceasefire. That's our objective. That's what we want, right? And frankly, they are willing to work, and they say, when we make a commitment, we honor it. But this, again, is a misnomer when people say violence in Afghanistan is linked to the Taliban. There are other players over there. What about Daesh? What about other, terrorist organizations in Afghanistan? So you cannot blame them for all the ills in Afghanistan.
Okay, let's talk about that.
There is an element in Afghanistan who has benefited from the war economy. And there are spoilers.
You do have, of course, elements of Daesh in Afghanistan. You also have Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula that's not so far away. They might differ slightly in ideology from the Taliban, but strategically they actually make perfect allies. And if the Taliban takes recognized control of parts of Afghanistan, are you looking at a situation where this could just simply go from bad to worse, that Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula and Daesh can step in to start working with the Taliban together to fulfill all of their strategic goals, which is to reinforce the extreme version of Sharia law and to continue with the jihad that they have sworn allegiance to for so many decades now?
We are no supporters of Daesh.
Of course not.
We are no supporters of Al-Qaeda. In fact, we do not want any terrorist organization to gain a foothold in the region, not just Afghanistan, in the region, to cause harm to the neighbors or beyond, friends and allies, We do not want that. And that is why we have been playing this role. To begin with, we cleansed our own areas today. We have started fencing the border so that there is more regulation and better border management.
Have you cleansed your own areas? You just had an attack on the most important luxury hotel in Quetta that was claimed by the Pakistan Taliban, trying to target the Chinese ambassador.
The point is, where are they located? Where has Taliban, the TTP, where is it located today?
The border is very fluid.
The border is fluid. It was fluid for decades, for centuries. We are now managing it, and we have managed it a lot better. And hopefully, once the fencing is complete, we are 90% there. Once it's complete, we will be able to border it in a better way.
Because there are so many Pakistanis who've expressed their serious concerns that by allowing the Taliban to return to power in Afghanistan, you automatically, by default, embolden existing extremist groups in Pakistan. And as I said, we just saw a major attack on a luxury hotel housing the Chinese ambassador.
A terrorist attack can take place anywhere. You haven't seen attacks in Europe? Haven't you seen attacks in Turkey? Everywhere. Terrorists are terrorists. They will take advantage of a situation. But I think if you look at the incidents of terrorism, they have declined sharply. They have declined
in
sharply.
Pakistan?
In Pakistan.
Not in Afghanistan?
Afghanistan, not to the extent they should have. Now, the question is, who was in charge there? That is why what we've been advocating is sit and talk. If you could find a military solution, you should have in 2 decades. You could not. And if you could not, then rethink, re-strategize, and look at things differently.
Well, some say that the military solution failed, some argue, in Afghanistan, because the United States dropped the ball and decided to invade Iraq instead, therefore losing focus in Afghanistan and missing an opportunity
This is old talk.
Bring fundamental change.
We've gone beyond that.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Let me ask you, though, I mean, what example are you setting? I mean, are you rewarding, again, are you rewarding extremism and terrorism by acknowledging that, yes, the Taliban has killed countless people in Afghanistan. They've threatened and intimidated journalists. They have destroyed the lives of women. So to make them stop, we'll recognize them as a political party and actually let them take at least partial control of the country. What kind of
First
example
of all,
does that
how
set?
can we reward any terrorist element? A country?
By giving them a seat at the table
By
to
a
become
country
a political
that has
party.
lost 83,000 lives on account of terrorism. A country that has paid a huge economic price. How can we reward them? You know, do you think we want Talibanization of Pakistan? We do not. We have women working. We have women in parliament. We have women judges. We have women in the judiciary. We have women in the civil service. We have women in the armed forces. And we are proud of them. Do you think we would want to impose a way of life which is not acceptable to us, in Afghanistan? Do you think we would want to promote extremism and an extremist ideology in Afghanistan,
It's not about
which is
what you
not
want,
in
it's about
sync?
what the Taliban is.
The point is, the Taliban is what it is. What's the way out? Give me a way out. You could, if you could have.
I'm not saying there's a simple solution.
If you could have defeated them, you had all the means. You had the technology, you had the resources, you had the money and the force. You could not, right? If you could not defeat them, and they, over the years, have also realized that Afghanistan is not the same. Now, if the Taliban think they can turn the clock back, I think they are wrong. They will have to accept the new realities of Afghanistan. Afghanistan is today democratic. Women in Afghanistan have a role, and you cannot lock them in, and cage them anymore. You know, girls want to go to school, and that should be respected. So that is a new reality. That is a new reality. Both sides have to recognize this reality, and in my view, the Taliban have to, and other elements, extremist elements, anywhere, they will have to give up, move from the bullet to the ballot.
Right. I understand that you have your ideals, and it makes perfect sense. We can all relate.
We believe in that.
Of course, we all do. Unfortunately, the Taliban is not a rational group. They never have been. They have a mindset that dates back really to the Middle Ages. That is just not rational. You've said before that you somehow know the Taliban want peace, in large part because they are fatigued.
Because the nation wants peace.
Okay,
the people of Afghanistan want peace.
They don't see the nation of Afghanistan as theirs. They see the nation of Afghanistan as a nation controlled
by
Afghans.
Foreign
forces.
You see,
and
they're
a government
Afghans.
That they
They're
won't
not
recognize.
aliens. They're not aliens. They're not outsiders. They're Afghans. And they want peace.
That's fine. That's fine. Afghans want peace. We're talking about the Taliban. And
they're Afghans as well.
They are Afghans as well, but Afghans with quite a different mindset that was considered a legitimate terror organization that you say has changed. But I mean, what people argue is that their fighting is what defines them.
Give them an opportunity to change.
Okay, if we give them an opportunity to change.
If you keep fighting them,
I'll cede
right?
you that.
If you keep fighting them, will they change?
I understand. I'm going to cede you that for now. Many people don't believe they can change, but I will cede you if they do change, if you believe they can and they are given this opportunity. What happens when a democratic Afghanistan goes to elections and the voters choose not to recognize the Taliban in any government? Do you think they'll respect that, or will they return to the fight?
The Taliban claim that they are popular in the people. Why don't they test their popularity at the ballot box?
Okay.
And if the people of Afghanistan do not vote them in, right, we will respect that.
Will they respect that?
Well, they ought to. They ought to.
Well, they ought to, but again, we're not dealing with a rational group. And when they believe, you know, having to fight a war for 20, 30, 40, even 50 years
You see,
only guarantees them eternity.
Even irrational elements have to respect public opinion. Don't you think there are irrational people all over the world?
Not quite like the
But
Taliban.
the majority leads the way.
You are very much betting that this is a leopard that can change its spots.
I'm saying there is no other way. If there was, why didn't you try that?
And I'm saying if...
What was stopping the world to achieve what it wanted to achieve? Right?
I understand you're saying there's no other way, but I'm proposing that...
Could you get peace through a military surge? Right? Now,
No.
the question is, a decision has been taken. The world is tired. They're fatigued. They are in the COVID-19 phenomenon, right? Their economies have contracted.
Mm-hmm.
They have spent trillions of dollars and lost lives. They've said, we have done our bit. We have done our bit. Now it's for you, the Afghans, to play your role.
Mm-hmm.
As long as we are secure and they feel confident that they've broken the back of that extremist element to sort of go beyond Afghanistan to harm them or to hurt them, right? They have that ability is no longer there. Now, the rest, Afghans have to decide what kind of a government they want, what kind of a political dispensation they want. Who are we to tell them?
The issue here is that as bad as it is in Afghanistan, if power is ceded to the Taliban, there is a very large chance
Who's
that
feeding power? Who is feeding power to them?
Ceding power, giving power to...
How?
Ceding some power.
How?
That's the whole point of negotiations. They
No,
want a
no,
stake
no,
in the governance of their country.
It will be, the decision will be, listen, the point is, you have
Do
conflict.
you not fear Afghanistan can descend into civil war again? If the Taliban does not get what it wants, it will again, and there will be no foreign troops. There will be no foreign troops to protect the Afghan people.
Afghanistan, going back into the 90s, is of concern to me. Afghanistan going into a civil war concerns me and should concern Pakistan, right?
Okay.
Because we want a stable, peaceful Afghanistan. We have suffered. If any other nation in the world has suffered, it's we, the Pakistanis.
Understood.
Even today, we are supporting close to 3 million Afghan refugees.
We know that.
Where is the world? You've forgotten about them. You've forgotten about them. But we are looking after them. We are giving them whatever we can within our resources. We have paid a huge price.
We know this.
We are saying, listen, it's your country, it's your future. What we have done is brought you to the negotiating table. And we have not been there, by the way.
Right.
The talks have been going on directly between the US and the Taliban, right? And now the talks would be intra-Afghan.
Okay.
We are not there to tell them what to do and what not to do.
You are there to facilitate.
And they are smart enough to realize what's good for them.
Okay.
Peace is good for them. It makes sense.
Some might say they don't believe peace is good for them. They believe continuing with jihad is the best option.
Well, there could be spoilers. There could be spoilers outside of Afghanistan who feel peace is not good for them.
Fair enough.
They have their own national objectives.
Absolutely.
They do not have regional objectives, which is peace and tranquility.
Right.
They have their own national objectives.
I want to talk about that.
Someone
I want to talk
sandwiched.
about that. But absolutely. I mean, we could have this discussion for hours. We really could. But our time is limited, and I wanted to ask you about other issues at stake. First of all, very quickly, just to finish with these talks. They were sadly postponed. You feel they will hopefully resume next month, as is the plan. But I want you to tell me, because it was monumental, really, that they were scheduled to take place here in Istanbul. How important is Turkey as a partner now in these negotiations? Do you think it's fundamental in moving this process forward?
Well, Turkey is an important player. Turkey has influence in the region. Turkey has substantial influence in Afghanistan, and we are thankful to Turkey for playing that role to begin with. You know, when we were in Dushanbe for the Heart of Asia conference, I met the UNAMA representative over there, and I said, "Ma'am, are you properly prepared for the Istanbul process? And if you're not, get your homework done." I said it way ahead, because I thought the intentions were good, but the homework was lacking, right? And then came this decision, this fundamental decision of the Biden administration, after having carefully reviewed the whole strategy that Trump had announced, and that is an unconditional withdrawal. Now, they have decided that they are leaving, and this process will be completed by the 11th of September. It's for Afghans to decide, do they want to keep killing each other? Do they want to remain untouchables, vis-a-vis the rest of the world? Or do they want respectability? The world has done everything possible for them. Look at the donor conferences, Look at the money that has been pumped into Afghanistan. Absolutely. And look at the way that money has been utilized and at times misutilized, gone into people's pockets. Let's be honest about it. I'm being very candid, and I'm doing it because I am a friend of Afghanistan. I believe in a stable, peaceful, friendly Afghanistan. Okay. I want them well. I wish them well. That is why they have to sit back and reflect. It's not just the Taliban. There are other elements in the Afghan government who have to realize that engagement, negotiations. Now, we've always held this view, when they are sitting across the table, it's going to be slow, it's going to be a bumpy ride, but you will have to persevere. And you will have to be patient.
I hope your optimism prevails. The world hopes your optimism prevails.
I want to be optimistic.
Absolutely. I only have you for a few more minutes, and I absolutely have to ask you about another round or form of peace talks that Pakistan is having with India. Most of them right now in secret, facilitated by the UAE. Are they showing perhaps more promise than the peace talks in Afghanistan?
Let me correct you. A, we are not having any peace talks at the moment.
Talks.
We are, and the UAE is not facilitating anything.
Really?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I have seen stories about the role of mediation. No. UAE is a friend. And UAE has good relations with Pakistan and with India, right? All friends have consistently been saying, listen, you're two nuclear states. You cannot go to war. And you have outstanding issues. The best way forward is dialogue. Pakistan has never shied away from dialogue, right? India had shied away. India took certain steps that vitiated the climate. Look at the statement Pakistan made. Look at the statement Prime Minister Imran Khan made when he won the elections. You take one step towards peace, we will take two. It was an olive branch, because we as a government, we have a people-centric agenda. We want economic security. We want to concentrate on our economic stability. And for that, we need peace. We need peace with our eastern neighbor, and we need peace on the western front, right? So, talks makes sense. Now, are they willing to talk? We are willing to talk. For them to convince us, they will have to create that conducive environment, which they vitiated by actions of 5th of August, by snatching statehood from Kashmiris, by alienating the Kashmiris, by depriving them of their fundamental rights, and they are still in a double lockdown. We are facing a COVID lockdown, right? They are facing a COVID lockdown, and they are facing a military siege. So, how do you talk to people in that environment? Give them the relief, give them the statehood. Even, secular voices within India have said this policy, the Kashmir policy of the Indian government has failed. It has boomeranged. It has failed to achieve the objectives that were enunciated when it was launched. So revisit, rethink. If you're willing to engage, Pakistan will never shy away.
Shah Mahmood Qureshi, thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us on the Newsmakers. We greatly appreciate it.
Thank you.
And thanks, of course, to our viewers as well. See you next time.